So one challenging situation you might have faced, especially in your mid-career, because the audience is the aspiring young professionals.
Yeah.
And what did you do? Specific steps that you took to deal with that or to handle that?
Yeah, actually that is interesting. Actually, while you say mid-career, I wanted to actually talk about something which was quite interesting. Is when I joined FCB, and that was about exactly 4 years ago. One of the big challenges that I had was, FCB as an organization has retained its clients over the past 36 years, right? Mm-hmm. So, very rich heritage of client relationships, and there were a lot of people within the organization who've been in the company for almost 30, 25, 26 mm-hmm. years. I was the first person in the last 62 years of the organization who's come from the outside to take the top job.
Wow!
Right? So the whole thing was always a question of, because the culture of FCB was always to promote from within.
Inside, yeah.
Right? So, and also the entire, the leadership team was retiring as well at the same time. So mm-hmm. they were all retiring. There was somebody new coming in, and there were a whole host of people who were been in the organization for some time, and there were a whole host of clients who have been in the organization for some time, right? So the challenge of managing an organization with such a rich heritage of legacy, and then saying that, but we want change as well,
yes,
and we want to change and create a new way of working, etc.
Yeah.
Those were the big challenges, right? So how do you actually do old and new at the same time?
That's a huge mandate.
Yeah, that whole thing was, and when we talk about it as a company, in fact, we had a global summit here this year in the beginning of the year where I shared the story of FCB India and the turnaround. So when I joined, the global CEO did some interviews with the journalists, right? And some of the journalists said, but FCB is such a fuddy-duddy agency, right? So when he came back to talk to me, he said, I spoke to everybody about you joining the company, and they all said fuddy-duddy, old-fashioned agency. He said, these are words I don't want to hear again, right? So when I come next year, hopefully you'll have new words for us, right? So, and the fact is that this year we've been ranked, and this is a global ranking of agencies, creative agencies across the world, as the number 1 creative agency in India.
Wow.
And the number 18th creative agency in the world, right?
Wow.
So that's a huge shift from this list. The FCB is never featured in the list, right?
Oh.
We made our debut on the list as the number 1 agency, right?
Wow.
So,
wonderful.
which was ahead of Ogilvy and McCann and Lowe and all the agencies, right? So that was like a big, blazing debut, if you would call it, on that,
Yes.
what was the gun report. So, when we looked at it, when we said that, okay, so what are what actually contributed to this whole change and I think the fundamental thing that actually worked for us was and I was mindful of that getting in, that there is a fantastic heritage of the organization, but there is also a need to change, and the organization hadn't changed, right? So there was a need to do that. So that balance of old and new was perhaps the most important thing to do, right?
And
so
most
the
difficult.
first thing I did was actually I created a heritage video, right?
Okay.
A heritage video which celebrated the best work that FCB had done in the last 60 odd years, right? And when I started my presentation to people about what we want to do, I started it with that video, saying that first let's look at all the fantastic work that this agency has done, and truly the agency had done some really remarkable creative work. remarkable. You know, I mean, if you think about it, there's so many of the iconic advertising, like if you remember Naukri.com with you know, that guy saying I for idiot, you know, it was the first time that it sold online jobs. Why should boys have all the fun, which was a pleasure line, that iconic image of that little boy, you know, doing a somersault with that puri falling down, you know. So there were so many of these great pieces of work that the agency had, and I thought it was very important for everybody to understand, and that I acknowledge the fact that you've come from success, you haven't come from failure, right? So coming from success and then saying, now how do we take this success to another level, was more acceptable to everybody. And I've seen a lot of times that people feel you know, slighted by if you actually you know, just ignore what the past is and move forward.
Absolutely.
So and I think I gave them a beautiful analogy, which was, it's an organization is like a tree, right? Very important for us to know where the roots are, right? And the roots are deep, and they stand for the culture of the organization, they stand for the belief system of the organization. So while that remains intact, what can change are the leaves, right? So the leaves fall and new leaves come in, and new. So if you visualize an organization like that, so what I was telling them is that we will keep the roots intact, but we will change the leaves of the organization, right? So there will be new set of leaves which reflect the new environment, because the roots are underground, right? That's a value system. We don't want to change that value system, because there is a value system that has helped the organization retain clients and retain people. So it was very important to keep that value system. At the same time, when you say change, then some things will change, of course. It will be our approach to creativity, our approach to building brands, etc.